Hello and welcome to Talking Democracy. I'm your host, Darrell Hamlin. Today we'll be talking with the Student Government Association President, Chris Roberts. President Roberts has served in numerous roles in SGA, and he's had an impact on many of the organizations and activities here at Fort Hays. President Roberts is a Justice Studies major who previously was also a member of the concert choir. Today we'll be discussing the Student Government Association allocations process. Welcome back to Talking Democracy. Our guest today is SGA President Chris Roberts. Thanks for being with us again today, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Hamlin.
Before we get down to business, why don't you let our audience know a little bit about yourself? Where are you from?
Well, I'm from Salina, Kansas. Great town just right down the road, and I graduated Salina High School Central. So I'm a Mustang at heart from my alma mater. I also grew up in my childhood in a small town of Anthony, Kansas. So I've been able to have multiple perspectives from the small childhood life to going to a bigger city, which then I've come to learn that Salina really isn't the big city after all.
Did you have any family connections to Fort Hays?
I actually did not, but a lot of friends of the family are from Fort Hays and really pushed me to check it out.
Have you got any career plans firmed up yet?
It's a work in progress as always. A number of the students here never know exactly what they're going into, just see how things come. But so I'm a Justice Studies major, and originally I was looking to go into a criminology type of field. But of course now I've gotten involved much more in the political side, so kind of see how that goes.
Well, the last time you were here, you were gearing up for the Rules for Rent campaign. Tell us a little bit about that and how it went.
Well, the Rules for Rent campaign is actually still going on. We had great success during the fall semester. All the senators went door to door throughout the university district to raise awareness of the safety issues that people could face during the winter time, such as faulty wiring, making sure that when you leave during break that you still have your thermostat set and still on, so that way your pipes don't freeze and bust, because that could cause potential problems for you when you came back home, and very high significant utility bills, and just the overall aspects throughout that. And we had great success with that. And now we've actually partnered with the Leadership 310 class, and which we're going to offer a full week of getting everyone geared up for moving and getting ready to rent, especially the freshman class who will likely be moving out for the first time on their own, just to raise awareness of how the process works, how to handle roommate situations, some tips and tricks, and really just making sure they also know the fact that when they go in to rent the house for the first time, that the landlords walk with them through the house and do a room inspection, so that way at the very end, students have the best potential possibility of getting their deposits back, and so much more different things.
What's the best piece of advice you could give someone who's renting for the first time?
The best piece of advice would actually be go to the City of Hays website, or even FHSUstudents.org, and click on Housing Guide. And there it gives a full list of everything to expect, and also rules and regulations.
Okay, well, we're going to come back in just a moment to get more into the business of talking about student government on Talking Democracy.
In the Media Studies Department at Fort Hays State University, opportunities are there for the taking. Media Studies students are taught the abilities and skills needed to succeed in collegiate and professional life. Within the department, students are able to learn, develop, and perfect their skills by producing award-winning shows and broadcasting live on radio. With the hands-on experience available, the Media Studies Department offers students the experience for their future today.
Euthanization has decreased 22% since the 1970s. However, approximately 6 to 8 million dogs and cats are put in animal shelters each year, with 3 to 4 million of those being euthanized. Today's average animal shelter contains over 25% of dogs that are purebreds. Most pets come to find themselves in shelters for a variety of reasons: family tragedies, unlucky circumstances, or irresponsible owners. It is only with help from people like you that we can help prevent the overpopulation problem. Adopt a pet from your local humane society. Even if you can't adopt a pet, contact your local animal shelter and find a way to get involved. Volunteers are always needed. Please be a responsible pet owner. Save a life. Add some joy to your own world.
Welcome back to Talking Democracy. Our guest today is SGA President Chris Roberts. Let's talk about politics and governance on the student side of things at Fort Hays. Seems like the SGA elections are coming up. What can we expect, and what are you hoping to see?
Well, always expect the unexpected when it comes to any sort of election, whether it's at the university level or even at national level. I think we have a great pool of candidates of senators because we're very fortunate to have such a young Senate this year, and I know a lot of them are gearing up to rerun, and for all the accomplishments we've been able to make this year, I know it's spurred some interest amongst non-SGA members currently. So I think the Senate elections especially may be the most contested than they ever have been before, and possibly the most influential, kind of the dark horse, for instance.
What should somebody be thinking about if they're considering a run for the first time?
Well, they always got to think about what it is they look to accomplish. And then also they should be looking at what the presidential candidates look like and what their goals and visions are. Because a lot of times the things that the Senate's looking to do can also accommodate very well with that administration. And in order to truly be successful, it requires a collaborative effort between the Senate, the executive staff, to work for the common good of the students.
Well, speaking of the administration, a lot of people want to know the answer to this question. Are you thinking about running again? You're eligible.
That I am. There's always thoughts of whether or not to run again. I can say if I were to run, we've been able to accomplish so much through this administration that my true goal would be, I've already proven can handle the tangible items, get the results of the day-to-day things. I want to really gear towards the big picture type issues.
Can you give us an example of what you're thinking about if you do decide to run?
Well, if I were to be running, one thing, whether or not I'm running or not, that I'm going to be focused on next year is working with administration, faculty, and students, and the business community on general education reform. What does it mean now to be a well-rounded citizen in the 21st century? A lot of students have come to concerns with me about, for instance, there's a lot of courses that aren't teaching you the life skills that you'll need in your adult life, and there should be more of a focus on those type of things. And businesses especially are looking for more of the skills of critical thinking and different aspects, rather than the focus on just the content and knowing different things, especially with how available and easily accessible resource is now to get different content. Another instance is MIS class, for instance. It's supposed to teach you those extra skills in computer literacy, but a lot of times it's just review over Word and over the overall history of how the computer originated. But I think more of a focus should be on Excel, QuickBooks, Access, and teaching students some additional type things. But that can only be accomplished by engaging the faculty, engaging the business community, and the students as well, and just coming to the common ground of what it really truly means.
Well, another place students learn a lot about what it means to be a citizen and how to do their job are the organizations that they're involved in. We've got that allocations process coming up. Tell us a little bit about how that process works.
Well, the allocations process, this year we've done many different things to make it easier for students, because it's always been a burden towards them. So we created a funding guide to teach students exactly how to fill out the worksheets and how to fill out the budgets. And then we also had the workshops to help students prepare for the actual hearing and the actual allocations meeting. And so they go through this process, go to the committee hearing, and then next up they go to the big meeting after the committee recommendations. And this year we had our shortest meeting on recent record. Very great results. Everyone seemed very happy about the outcomes. The only true shortfall I see with that is the actual rule that the committee can only fund items that are $2,000 and above. And they always suggest that the other organizations who get funded less go to appropriations that next year. Now, I just don't understand why we're making organizations come back again after they just went through this whole process to get the money, to come back to get the money again if they would have been approved anyways.
So from your perspective, having gone through this process, what would be a better way of doing it?
Just a simple rule change of no matter how much money you're asking for, any organization can be funded through allocations, because then that could just be taken out of the appropriations fund that's funded through allocations anyways. And it will make it easier for the students, rather than having to come back, submit a new request, go through a new procedure of going through a hearing, go into a Senate meeting, explaining the request again. It just be as easy as possible for students, not harder.
So can you remind us again where the funding comes from?
So the funding comes from a combination of aspects. The student activity fee, a university contribution, as well as other various contributions such as a reserve fund that has been carried over from years to years.
Okay, so next year, my understanding is that the allocation process actually changes. Can you tell us a little bit about those changes and what you expect from that?
The allocation process, from my understanding, will not be changing.
Oh, it's not?
No. The only thing that I believe should be changed is just that small minor detail of allowing the student organizations to be able to get funded no matter what their request is.
Is there anything else that could possibly be changing for next year?
Well, not so much related to allocation specifically, but what we were able to do this year was pass something called the Fundle Bill. And this was, when we came into the year, we were faced with a significant increase in overall activities that have been funded and started, so Sibelius Lecture Series, After Dark programs. Well, those are not just one line item, one-time funding things. They require constant, continuous funding, so we want to see them kept around. And the previous year's Senate had approved to cut deep all the way through our reserve. And so this year we had to come up with a creative way to be able to invest in the innovative Tiger Media Network program that I have a lot of faith in moving forward. And then also, one aspect that I've always seen through the last 2 years was University Activities Board being limited on what kind of acts they're able to bring because they're not sure what kind of funding they'll be able to have, as well as the personal gain limitations that the funding has. So we moved those two organizations out to help supplement them, turn them to a fee schedule with specific limitations where the Student Government Association still reviews it. However, we're not allowed to oppose stipulation that the Student Senate cannot cut these organizations more than 5% than the originally appropriated money without going to the students first and explaining why, and having it go to a student vote. So that way, hopefully we'll never see another instance such as the leader where they get cut so significant levels that they just disappeared altogether last year. And that was really what I was trying to do. And what it also included was a elimination of the higher education price index inflation increase. And what that accounts to is roughly right around 50 cents per year, a total over a 4-year span of $60 to the students. And if we were facing a shortfall, obviously student fees were going to have to go up. So we had to do some reorganization, some reappropriation, so that way student fees actually would not go up, but rather than having those type of things take effect, we moved those into the student activity fund. So that way we're able to continue these funding student organizations without a massive reduction in costs, not only just short term, but long term in the future. So we'll be able to build those reserves back up and continue funding organizations rather than what was projected at over $150,000 loss.
So is there going to be any kind of reduction in the amount of money that's available total for next year?
With this plan, no, there will not.
Okay. So then from the perspective of the student organizations, maybe if the students who are running those organizations are a little inexperienced, what do they really need to know about this process? What should they be paying attention to?
Well, as far as related to the fees or related to allocations?
Any part of the process, what seems to be a problem sometimes with the way students, the organizations go through this process?
Well, one thing that I've always seen up to this year was they never knew what to do. You know, there wasn't really that help there. They just go into the hearing and it's question after question. They're not always prepared about the budget and about what to expect or really what the committee is wanting from them. So that's why continuing the workshops that we started this year, which obviously had a great impact towards student organizations, expanding on those into a little bit more availability throughout the whole entire year possibly would be great, so that way they become as knowledgeable as possible about the process.
Well, I think it's about time for another break. When we come back, we'll get right back into this.
Okay.
How to drink and drive. Step 1. Find and consume alcohol. Step 2. Get through your friends and or family and find your car. Step 3. Wish yourself luck and take off. Don't drink and drive. It's not worth the risk.
This isn't a good lifestyle to have. Quit hitting the snooze button. Get up and go in the morning. Feeling fresh and clean helps boost your self-confidence. Start your day with some fruits and breads, like oatmeal. Exercise releases endorphins that make you feel happy and energetic. Live healthy.
Welcome back to Talking Democracy. Our guest today is SGA President Chris Roberts. So getting back to talking a little bit about the governance process, there's been a little bit of criticism out there about the experience level of the senators who are involved in the process. Does this cause any kinds of problems?
I don't believe so. This is a talented bunch of young leaders who have taken apart and really learned from the mentorship of some of the veterans who were with us, such as Trisha Getz from the Business College. But they've really taken a part of it and got a feel for it and have really stepped up to the challenge. Without the senators themselves, a lot of the great accomplishments that SGA has been able to do would not have been possible.
Have there been any kind of workshops for the senators to help them understand a little bit more about what their role is?
Well, actually, yes. Right at the beginning of the year, we had the orientation. But even after the orientation, the one-on-one meetings with the vice president, who is the leader of the Senate, and the chairperson, about how to more effectively push through the meetings and parliamentary procedure. Actually, we had a workshop before the allocations meeting to touch upon parliamentary procedure, but even more so to get into a more strict version of parliamentary procedure. And that itself, I think, contributed greatly to how quickly the meeting went, because instead of before, we were in the black and gold room and we were in this V setup. A lot of times the chairman couldn't even see who's raising their placards. We were in a setup to where everyone was facing the chair, and just like the real world, and everyone had to come to the mic to talk about what they're doing, to make the motions, get the second, and follow a much more strict version, which has never been done. And they really championed that and have done very well.
So is there any kind of advantage to an inexperienced senator?
Well, the advantage is not being caught up in all the minor details and different things. And you know, I know when I was a freshman, I had first joined and I was on the allocations committee, and I was the only freshman on the committee. I was with many veterans of good standing, but they were split. It was back in a time where it was a very combative Senate towards the executive staff, and I was always the one they would turn to try to get the extra vote. So a lot of the times I was actually able to work with both sides to come to common ground in different situations. That's why I think that year the allocations process went so well, besides maybe a few hiccups. But I think that's the greatest advantage for the inexperienced senator. If you're willing to take on the challenge, you can really hone in and get some things done.
What's the most important lesson you learned when you were an inexperienced senator?
The most important lesson I probably learned was never go back on your word. Always communicate with your constituents, and also build relationships, because everything you do is about relationships. And if you have good relationships with a wide variety of people, you're much more likely to get things accomplished.
Those sound like good rules for politics and life. Now, when the committees, or when the executive committee has to go into executive session, what can you tell us about what happens there?
Well, I can't tell you anything about what happens.
Can you discuss even the kinds of issues that they're struggling with or trying to work through?
They can, when it comes to executive session, the reason why I had said, oh, I can't say anything is because it's a private meeting to discuss internal issues that may be happening within any organization, any committee, issues related to personnel matters, issues that may be personal to individuals. Anything of the sort regarding that is when you can go into executive session.
So when they're coming out of the executive session, what is it that you're bringing out of those sessions to back into the public?
Well, hopefully nothing, since it was a private session. Really depending on what's being discussed, and there's a wide variety of things that can be discussed. It really depends on why you're in executive session, about what you go about within the public, the next step. You know, you don't want to go and talk about some personnel issue that was related out in the public, because that would defeat the purpose of executive session.
So the privacy of the session really allows you to get at some of those issues without potentially embarrassing or causing any kinds of problems publicly.
Well, you know, it kind of depends on how you look at it. You know, some issues are sensitive in nature to certain individuals. And that's the reason for executive session. If you want to talk about it, come to form a plan of how to do different things, and make sure everyone's okay with the next steps, if it's related to personnel or different issues.
So turning to a different issue, there's some sense that some people have that there's a little bit of tension between SGA and the Tiger media. What's your perspective on that? Is that true?
Well, my perspective is I've been the #1 advocate of leading the charge to actually push through the fundle, which created the fee to invest into Tiger Media Network. I also serve on the board of directors, and our first search for an executive producer was a failed attempt, but you don't always get those searches right the very first time. And I can say that we're in the process of looking for executive producer and news producer, hopefully to take over here coming up, because it's important to have a vision and great faculty here to be able to lead the next set of students in the future and to teach them the great basics of journalism, of what it's all about, as well as the department's going to be looking for a new chair. And I know Dr. Schleicher's played an integral role in the success of Tiger Media Network so far, and definitely being short-handed. I can say it's been, there's always growing pains with a new organization. I know the frustration has been there with the student workers, faculty, and staff all involved in Tiger Media Network. And I appreciate them pushing through and providing some great work. Obviously not expecting anything perfect. That'd be hard to expect, and the SGA realizes that, and we know this is going to be a great thing in the future.
Well, one of the big stories going on at Fort Hays, of course, is the search for a new Fort Hays State University president. How has SGA been involved in that?
So I'm actually a member of the search committee, and that's been the main significant role of SGA has just been my involvement. And we have such a great pool of candidates coming. We've already been able to have 2, getting ready to have 3, and it's very diverse. And every single candidate has the skills to take over. Now it's finding who is the right fit. And from my perspective, I haven't kept it to just SGA. I'd be wrong in doing that, saying, all right, hey, SGA, what do you guys think? I have reached out into the student community to where there's a member from Greek Life, there's a member of VIP Ambassadors, there's a member of Members Activities Board, student employees, rodeo and agriculture, a wide variety of different students to get opinions and tell them about when the socials are, and get involved with the candidate, because what it's really about during this process when we bring them on campus is seeing if they relate to the students. That's my #1 thing I'm focused on, is making sure that they're relatable to the students, they're here for the students, and they have a great vision to really improve FHSU.
So other than relating to the students, are there any other kinds of characteristics that you're really looking for in the next president?
Well, there are. It's all about the vision that they have and how they're going to handle the international partnerships, the virtual college, which has been a rapidly expanding program, how we plan on seeing that. And now with the possible partnership with Dodge City Community College and the technical side of different things, what kind of vision they will have with that, as well as fundraising. Right now we've seen, throughout the country, dwindling state support all over. And now it's really getting to the point where the president has to be there to be an effective fundraiser and fight for his students to get every dollar possible. Besides that, and then obviously advocating for the university as a whole to the legislature.
So when that new president takes office, what do you think they should spend their first year doing?
The first year, that's the great thing and unique opportunity that this next president will have, is Dr. Hammond will still be here as a consultant, and just as a consultant. So no, I would expect them to work with them to build relationships, especially within China, because the culture over there is all about relationships and building those. So it's very important to get on the right foot, especially in that aspect. There's so many great initiatives that we've been able to start in the university, but my hope is being able to explore some new creative, innovative ways of how the classroom works, such as general education reform, and really dig into that pool and stimulate that conversation.
So, thinking about your own term as president of the SGA, what do you think has been the success you're most pleased with, and do you have any disappointments?
The thing I've been most pleased with is how visible we've been able to make SGA this year and how much we have truly been able to help the students, whether it's from streamlining the funding procedures, from raising awareness on tenant rights, or helping out in the community, such as the big event, even all the way to the Kansas legislature, as I'm serving as chair of the Students Advisory Committee. We've been able to effectively advocate to them, and we actually had a student-led initiative pass through the House and led into the Senate, which failed in the Senate Tax Committee. But rest assured, one thing I've always realized is always have a backup plan. And so working through that right now, and we have the second bill that's actually been waiting to be proposed, and I think this has a great shot to get through and really help students.
Well, I think that's about all the time we have in our conversation today, but I think we're all eagerly waiting to hear whether or not you want to run again this next year. Our guest today was SGA President Chris Roberts. Thank you for being a guest again today. It's a pleasure to have you. We encourage our viewers to check out Talking Democracy and other services offered by the Tiger Media Network at tmn.fhsu.edu.
Thank you, sir.
Good.